Hey, good morning, everybody. I got some stuff ready. I'll try to keep it as short and sweet as possible. As always, got a bunch of notes, but anyhow, it's in 2 Corinthians 5:17, and 2 Corinthians was written by Paul. Paul was he was writing to the people of Corinth, and he was trying to more or less try to prove himself to them who he is, try to reaffirm his place as an apostle of Christ, and that among other things, he was trying to out some false teachers. And anyhow, there's a lot of key parts of 2 Corinthians, but a big part of it was he's trying to show people and to prove himself as an apostle and win them back. You know, he was his second mission trip was to Corinth, and he tried, and that's where he made a lot of new believers. But anyhow, 2 Corinthians 5:17, and I guess to me this whole message will be about reputation, and there's two sides of the spectrum there. But let's see, it's 2 Corinthians 5:17, and it says, "This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone and a new life has begun." And to me, you know, like I said, there's two sides of that. You can be on one side of that verse, which means you are a person. In this sense, he's telling people, you know, you can't see people for who they were. You have to see people for who they are. And ironically, it goes back to the story in Acts, which was in Acts chapter 9. It goes back to when Paul, who was Saul at the time, he had just become, it was the road to Damascus, in case people aren't familiar with the story, where Saul was, he persecuted Christians. He was a Jew, and he just persecuted Christians for what they believed. He was just a super warrior for the war against Christ, more or less. And he was on his way to Damascus to do more persecution. And while he was on his road, God blinded him and wouldn't let him see. He asked him, "Paul, why do you forsake me? You know, why are you after me? Why are you after my people?" And anyhow, long story short, Jesus worked in him and sent a man, a believer from Jerusalem, I believe he was from Jerusalem, sent a believer to him, and had him, you know, pray for him, put his hands on his eyes, pray for him, and unblind him. Jesus made him blind before, you know, until he would change his ways. And anyhow, once that happened, it was just instant. He changed his ways. He was a new believer. He was reborn. And that's what we are. We're reborn. We're not refurbished. We're not restored. We're reborn. We're new people. So there's two sides of that verse when it says, "This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, a new life is gone." Begin. So you can, if there's two, you can either be condemned or you can be the condemner. And if we're the condemner, obviously we're wrong. In Acts chapter 9, it goes on to talk about a man named Barnabas who believed. You know, in chapter 9, Saul goes on and he's trying to start his ministry. He's trying to preach, and he's proclaiming God, like just proclaiming Jesus, just heavily proclaiming him. And people there in Jerusalem, they didn't want to believe that he was true. They didn't believe that Jesus really changed his life. They thought he was fake. They didn't believe him because of his past, because he was so heavy persecuted the Christians. So they just didn't believe it. They didn't want to believe it, and they even tried to kill him. And people heard about it, and they anyhow they passed along to Saul or Paul. I mean, same guy. And anyhow, a man named Barnabas helped him get out, and Barnabas took Paul to the apostles, which were, you know, or the disciples, which John Mark, which was Barnabas's cousin, who later wrote the book of Mark. Anyhow, Paul, Mark, Barnabas, they became just super ministry. And anyhow, Paul has been on both ends of that, and actually he was on that end heavily, where he was getting condemned for his past and his reputation. And a lot of times, I think in our life, we get condemned for our past and for our reputation, and we can't let that affect us, because we know that we're new. We know that we're new. As soon as we accept Christ, we're new. So we have that faith. And on over on 5:17, you flip the page back in 2 Corinthians 4:17, and it tells us, "So we don't look at the troubles we can see now, rather we fix our gaze on things that cannot be seen. For the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever." So that's our faith. That's our hope. If we if we're being condemned for our past by believers or by non-believers, it doesn't matter. If we're being condemned for our past, if we're really changed, it doesn't matter. We need to fix our eyes on the prize and realize that the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. And that's our main goal. And if you're the person condemned, I mean, we don't. Obviously, that's wrong. We need to be more like Barnabas. If for some reason, which I don't know if we are, but if we're kind of looking at somebody's past and we're like, I don't know, man, I don't really trust them, but they do kind of do what they say. We'll pray about it, get the answers, and be an encourager. Be Barnabas to them. Help them get through this, through whatever troubles they're going. If people are condemning them for their past, be Barnabas to them, because you never know. You may be encouraging our generation's Paul. So never forget that. Barnabas. If Barnabas didn't encourage and help Paul, who knows how the Bible would have looked today. So. Like I said, there's two sides of that: the condemned or the condemner. If you're being condemned for your past, know that there's something more important than just what people think about you. And if you're the person condemning, let's be the encourager and help bring our generation's Paul to life. Hope everybody has a good week. Keep praying, keep doing what you're told. Times get tough, I know that. Just keep studying, get in the Bible, and it's gonna alleviate some of that. So, hope everybody has a good week. Be careful out there, and I'll talk to y'all again next week.